Howdy, Possum Patty and the Soggy Bottom Bunch here. Well, it's Sunday, but this morning, yeah, it was raining, it was damp, it was cold, it was raw. No Sunday flea market for the possum family. But that did give me a little extra time to come in here and prep the papers to make the signatures for Everybody Needs a Rock. I'm going to show you how I did that. And then I'm going to take some of my threads and sew them into the journal. And this journal will be ready to be journaled in. I'm so excited. Can't wait. Can't wait. So let's get started. Come on along. There's three things that I want to remember to talk about. Yes, three things that I came across putting these signatures together. And the very first thing is, look at the size of the cover of this journal. Look at the size of the pages that are inside. Yes. And every page, is like a double spread and folded in half. We make our journals, we take one sheet of paper and we fold it in half, and we take another sheet and we fold it in half, and we stack them up and we sew them. It's the same way with the book, right? So one sheet gives you 4 pages when you fold it in half, like that. But looking at this size, if I take like an 8.5 by 11, yes, not going to work. Another standard size is 12 by 12. That only gives me 6 inches, and this is almost 10. So I would need a sheet of paper that was almost 8 inches tall. This is, I think, 7 7/8, but it had to be like almost 20 inches long if this is 9 7/8. 9 7/8 from here to there. So it's almost 10. It's almost 8 by it's almost 10. And I don't have any papers that are, 8 and 8, 16 by 20. No, I don't have any papers that big. So I decided that I would make some Franken papers. I know, sounds scary, right?
Yeah.
Just the way the Frankenstein monster was made, from different body parts by sewing them together. All the little parts made one big body. I would make some big sheets of paper by gluing together smaller sheets. So we're going to call it the Franken papers.
Yeah.
Just taking smaller pieces of paper and putting them together to make a larger piece of paper. That's all that is. So I got out my 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and it took me quite a while to pick out the colors. As you can see, greens and blues and browns, touch of pink in there, touch of pink and rose. I thought these would be good colors. I wasn't worried about not having any patterns or anything, because I usually cover up the whole page anyway. And that took me quite a while. Yes, I didn't film because this whole process took me a couple of hours. Yes. So I figured I would just get it done and come back and explain to you how I did it. So I needed 2 pieces to put together to make one of those long sheets, right? So I had to pick out 14 for this because I like 7 pages in a signature. If I put more than 7 pages in a signature, it gets way too fluffy. Yes, way too fluffy. So I needed 14 and 14. I needed 28 pieces of paper. Okay, so that took a while, like I said, and now I have 28 pieces of paper. Well, just a little too tall. I had to cut it down from 8.5 to like 7 7/8. And to do that cutting, I called in Carl. Now this is Carl, my slicer dicer, right? And all I did was trim every paper from 8.5 down to 7 7/8 because that's the size of the book pages. But then for the edges, I was like, I wanted to go with more of a decal style edge, deckled edge. Usually I make my deckled edges just by, taking my thumb and pulling the paper up. But unfortunately, the arthritis, see that over here in this hand, was telling me, no, you're not doing that today. So I was like, okay, let's think of another idea. Oh, I called in Sarah. So here's Sarah. Yes, this is Sarah. Premium plastic wrap, right. And she's got this nice metal jagged edge on there. And she can do the work for me. So I can pull up with this hand. This hand has to stay still. Yes, that hand has to stay still. So I let this hand do all the work. So item number 1 was making Franken papers. Item number 2 was a lot of times when you use this plastic wrap or aluminum wrap or whatever you have, this jagged edge, there's actually a trick to getting a little bit more jaggedness on the paper that you want. See the nice clean points on this paper? Okay. And then look at this paper. It's a bit fuzzier and the points aren't as sharp. But both were done with this. So why does it come out different? Well, the paper that you pull towards yourself is going to have the cleaner jaggedy edge to it. And the part that's left under the cutter is going to be a little fuzzier, not as pointy. I discovered this on the very first piece of paper that I cut, which was this pink one, right? And if you look at it, it's hardly any jagged edge on there at all. Just a little tiny bit, not much at all. And that's because when I measured the width here, was it a little too long, about that much longer. Let's see, do I have a piece of paper here? So I had to take off about that much, okay? So on the first one, I put the cutter here and I just pulled this off. But the best jaggedy edge then came off on the strip and not on here. Duh. What should I do? Well, that's an easy solution. Instead of pulling up, like if this is the strip here, instead of pulling up that little edge like that, so the good side is there and the fuzzy side is there, I had to turn it around like that and pull off the large side to get the jaggedy edge that I wanted. Yes. I know, not complicated. No, not complicated. The side that you want the best edge on is the side that you have to pull up toward yourself. And then that gives you the best jaggedy edge. So after I discovered that fact, yes, the papers do have a nicer jaggedy edge on them. And I love that. All right, how did I put the papers together? Thank you, Carl and Sarah. I'm going to put them out of the way for now. I decided that I would put a strip of paper. Now use a nice quality scrapbook paper. This is one I got at the flea market, but it's a nice quality paper. It's not cardstock, but it's a nice quality paper. And because I was making 14 sheets, I needed to cut 14 strips, and I made them a 1/2 inch wide. Okay, the first thing was, of course, making the Franken papers. Yeah. And the second thing was, yes, play around with your saran wrap, plastic wrap, whatever kind of wrap you have, cutter. Be careful of the metal edges. Try pulling it toward you like this to get that nice edge. And yeah, the paper that's left underneath is going to be a little fuzzier. That was Sarah. The third thing is, these little strips of paper that I'm talking about. Yes, these little strips of paper. Now they're going to be folded. They're going to be folded. And whenever you're going to fold paper like this, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. If you fold it the right way, you're going to get a nice clean edge. If you fold it the way it doesn't want to be folded, sometimes you'll get like a jaggedy edge, like the papers will start splitting. It'll look a little fuzzy, just not clean and smooth. If you want a clean and smooth edge, you've got to fold your paper the right way. What do you mean, Possum Patty? Well, what I mean is, take a piece of paper gently in your hand like this and try to fold it. Stop as soon as you feel some resistance. So I feel resistance right here. This paper does not want to be folded. I mean, you can fold it. You can force it. You can force it, but you're not going to get a clean edge. It doesn't really want to be folded any more than that. But if I turn the paper and fold it, look at that. It just goes right in. It just goes right in. It wants to be folded in this direction. And if I fold it in this direction, I'm going to get a much cleaner edge. So I did that with this paper. You know, I tried it this way and I'm like, oh, resistance. And then I tried it this way and I'm like, oh, how easy that is. So I knew I was going to be folding those little strips. So I wanted to make sure that, yes, I'd be folding them in this direction. So I made the strips this way, right? Folds easy this way. Keep it like that in front of you. Cut your strips like this. And then when you go to fold them, you'll get that nice clean edge. And that was number 3. All right, enough of that. Let's sew some signatures. This is the back. This is the back. And it's going to be hard to get all these papers pressed in there. So I got to make sure this is going to be tight. Now, the reason I used good quality paper and not cardstock, I've done this before, yes. Voice of experience. And I've used cardstock to do this, but this part gets way too thick. It gets way too thick with all that extra layer of cardstock on every single page. So a good quality paper works a lot better. And I have to get out my pokey tool or awl, and I have to get out my needle, and I gotta move this stuff out of the way. Okay, I'm gonna move the journal so I don't poke the journal. I'm gonna take the inside sheet and open it up, and all right, one side is top. This side's the top. I have a little mark there. Yes, you should mark the top of your template. I didn't say that yesterday, did I? No. Usually I put a T for top, but I had a little mark right there, so I knew that was the top. Okay, this is the very last signature. So if this is the top, this is the template for that last signature. And I've got to line that up. So I started at the bottom. And these papers are off a little bit. Oh, you know what? It's even down here. Let's go this way. Okay. I'm going to line that right up there. I can put a clip on there. I got a little clip. I'm going to line this up at the top. Make my marks with my pen. Very good, very good. Look at that. Right in there. Right in the alley there. Now, open this up. Clip them all together. You do not put your hand behind where you're poking. Not a good idea. Keep your hand away. Okay, that one is ready. Okay, get the middle out of this one. Get my template again, get my little clips. There's the top. Okay, this is the front signature. Gonna line that up. I'm lining that line up with the gully there. Blue pen. And let's see. Right there. I want them flat at the bottom. The top doesn't matter to me. How uneven the top is, as long as the bottom is even, I'm good. I'm good with it. Okay, I need a couple more clips. And poke it straight through. And now go back to this one and get the journal out. Throw everything over there. I'm done poking holes. I can move my board. And my thread is cut, but not in the needle. I should write on here what this is. This is Everybody Needs a Rock. Oh, the pen was running out of ink. That's why it wasn't writing. All right, out of ink. New pen. Everybody needs a rock. Get the needle minder. But this is just a refrigerator magnet. But it works perfectly. Take care of your needle and your needle threader. This is an upholstery needle. It's short and dull and has a big eye. And this is 6 strands of embroidery floss. Wish I had some wax thread, but I don't. I keep saying that. Okay. This is going to go right here, and I'm starting from the outside. Okay, so I'm going to start in the middle on the back, because this is the last signature, and leave some for dangle. And this is the last signature, and these clips will get in the way, so I'll move those. Okay, I know I poked holes. I know I poked a hole. And there's the mourning dove coming up through all the holes there. Going down to the bottom. And then all the way to the top. And I missed the paper. Back down through the middle. Be careful not to catch the thread. It's already there. Sometimes I have to peek. Sometimes I have to peek. Maybe you'll have to peek too. That's okay. Just have to make sure to tighten up all the threads after peeking. And you want one thread on each side. I'm going to put the needle on the needle minder there so that I can pull this tight. Okay, it looks good on that side. I'm pressing down on the signature. See if I can get this tight. Let's see. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So you have one thread on each side. So when you tie your knot, you're tying it on top of the thread that's there. Three times. And we'll hope that's tight. How did we do? How did we do? Oh, nice and tight. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, one more. One more. And I've got to thread my needle. I'm going to take these clips off. And I wanted the pink in the front. Look how nice, yes. I'm going to start on the outside. Theoretically, you could just stick it in and it goes through everything all at once. But yeah, sometimes you got to finagle. You got to finagle a little bit. I can see it stopped there, but there's the whole. Okay, all right. I think I have it upside down, right? Yeah. Leave my dangle. Leave my dangle. And go to the bottom, which is here. Easier from this side. And pull that out through the top hole and through the signature. There we go. Okay. And back down through the middle. I'm looking to see, make sure I don't catch that other thread. Pull it tight. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to press this down. I've got one thread on each side. And I'm pressing that signature flat because it's a puffy one with those extra papers on there. And let me check the signature. And that is nice and tight. Make one more knot. I got 3 knots on each. So there we have it. We have fabric on the spine. You can see the 4 signatures, 2 in the middle. That's the story. Journaling signature there. The cover was from the book. Just some paper. On the inside, some fabric. And we have a journaling signature. And then the complete story. And then a journaling signature. Papers on the end. Ta-da! Yippers! A new journal. A new junk journal. A new junk journal, learning journal to journal about my rocks. Yippers! I love it. I love it. Oh, making all that Franken paper. Yeah, that was quite the project. Worth the effort. Worth the effort. Look at that. Yes, I love it. Pages are kind of big, but I'm thinking, I could put 2 rocks on a page, unless I have a lot of journaling to do. Yeah. Oh, and remember the paper I cut those thin strips from to make my Franken pages? Well, I was looking at the leftover pieces here. Don't they go lovely on the first page? And up in the corner right there is a seashell, one of those spiral seashells. And when I was at the flea market, remember I showed you the petrified wood the other day? I got an ammonite. Oh, a gorgeous, gorgeous ammonite. And it's like a seashell. It's fossilized. And it's the whole thing split in half and polished. Now, I was looking at these at the rock shop, the fossil shop. And I was like, oh, that's gorgeous. I have a couple of little ones, smaller ones, and I bought one for my grandniece because she wants to be a paleontologist. And I saw this and I was like, oh, it's so much bigger and prettier than the ones I have. And so I held it up like this to the fellow at the flea market. I said, how much for this? He said, $5. And I was like, $5 for the whole thing? He said, no, $5 for each. And I was like, okay. And I gave him $5 for each because, yeah, it was quite a bit more money at the rock shop. Yes, it was. Oh, and I love it. I love it. So, I can journal about them on the very first page and use this right there. Oh, yippers. So excited, so excited. Well, thanks for coming along. I know it was a little bit of struggle to get those signatures in. I'm so happy. Oh, and thank you for allowing me to share my happiness with you today. Happy junk journaling. Bye-bye. Red Feather. Continuing on with Chapter 6, The Baron's Castle. So they went in by the side door, as quiet as you please, and they got past the sculleries, at which Rosemary shuddered and sighed, at which Lisa only stared curiously. But in the great stone kitchen, which was filled to bursting with cooks and maids working like mad and running here and there with big bowls of dough for cakes, they were stopped. A fat woman in a white cap, with her face flushed from bending over the fire, stood squarely across their path. Haven't I enough trouble? What with stupid girls and more stupid louts, and the feast tomorrow, and nothing right, but I must be bothered with 2 who do not belong here, and who do nothing but get under my feet. It sounded like fairyland to Rosemary, and she did not listen more here than she did there. When the fat woman stopped for breath, she said, "We have gifts for Baroness Margot." "Gifts, indeed. There's 3 king's ransoms in the great hall now, and here are 2 who have gifts. Get along, get along. The Baron will have it that the presents are to be brought to the hall by the bearers, as if we hadn't trouble enough, and the Baron too. Get along." Lisa was frightened and ran ahead, but Rosemary walked sturdily out. They went through corridors that were crowded with people, and at last they came out in the great hall, where at one end a fire burned in the big chimney place, and at the other end were tables covered with wedding gifts, all flashing and glowing and shining in the light from the fire and the flaring torches stuck into sockets along the walls. "Oh!" cried Lisa when she saw the tables loaded with presents, and she forgot her shyness and ran to see. Rosemary walked after her. There were gold services and silver services, strings, brooches, and rings of gold, set with diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. Laces like spun lovely thoughts, tapestries woven over with the deeds of heroes, embroidery stitched in patterns like poems, rich rugs that gave out an odor of amber, bottles of wine gray with dust lying cradled on their sides in wicker baskets, and on the tables at either side were the gifts of the villagers, stout linens, carved woolen saints, chalky white eggs in pottery bowls, rich cakes cut in squares and decorated with the initials of the bride and groom. In short, there was everything spread out on those tables that anyone on earth might ask for with which to start home life. But Rosemary had not grown up in the world, and she gave these splendors no more than a passing glance, for she had seen this sort of thing all her life. And she stopped for a minute only to look at a ring set with a moonstone. When she looked up from the ring, she saw Lisa with her mouth open and her eyes round. She was staring at the Baroness Margot, who had come in by another door and stood looking listlessly at her wedding gifts. Rosemary and Lisa dropped her a curtsy, and she smiled at them. But where Lisa saw only her gown of cloth of gold and the jewels at her wrists and about her neck, Rosemary saw only her tired blue eyes that looked as if she had not slept, and the shadows under her eyes that looked as if she had been weeping. "May I help you?" said the Baroness Margot graciously. She moved towards them slowly because her gown of cloth of gold was so heavy that there was nothing she could hurry to while she wore it. Lisa held out the basket with the loaves of new bread. "A small gift, gracious lady," she stammered. The young Baroness took the basket and, lifting out the loaves, found the linen cloth and shook it before her. "It will pass through the smallest wedding ring," said Lisa. "Only try it and you will see." Baroness Margot looked even paler than she had before. "The smallest wedding ring," she repeated, and she seemed to forget where she was, and even that she still held the linen cloth in her hands. Without knowing why she did it, Rosemary snatched up the moonstone ring and gave it to the Baroness. "Here is a ring, gracious lady," she said, and the Baroness Margot looked at it, and seeing that it was not a wedding ring, seemed to remember, and she pulled the glistening linen cloth through the ring. Lisa's cheeks turned red with pleasure, and the little Baroness thanked her for her fine gift. Rosemary stepped forward and held out the rope of poppies. The Baroness took the flowers and exclaimed with joy, "Oh," she cried, "they are like the poppies that grow in the fields in summer." Suddenly, without even putting her hands to her eyes, she began to cry, and the tears ran down her cheeks. Rosemary and Lisa stared with horror and pity, but the others in the great hall paid no heed to their young mistress, all of them acting as if this was old news to them. The Baron came striding in. He had red hair and a red beard, and he spoke in a round, deep voice. "What, Margot? Still in tears? You will think better of it tomorrow." Margot stopped weeping, and she looked her father in the face. "That I will not," she said. The Baron grew angry. "There is to be no weeping for Prince Conrad's welcome when he arrives tonight. Go, Make yourself fine for your bridegroom." The young Baroness looked about her in a lost way, and her eyes fell upon Rosemary. "Come with me, girl," she said. "You who brought me the poppies, you shall help me dress." Rosemary curtsied and followed Margot on her slow way out of the hall. She followed up the wide stairs and into a room that held a canopied bed and a tapestry frame and a prie-dieu with a holy picture over it. Margot went straight through the room, up one step, into a very small square room with one narrow window in it, and Rosemary followed her. Margot sat down in a big chair near the window and shut her eyes. Rosemary looked about her and saw that the walls of the square room were painted over with life-size figures of lords and ladies mounted on horses, all in gay hunting colors, on their way through a forest, in and out among the trees, following the hunt and the long, thin dogs that led them. Some of the horses were riderless, and they were led by a lad in green with a red feather in his cap. The paintings on the walls were so lifelike that if you looked away from the window, you might forget that you were in a room and sniff the air for the smell of green trees and brave horses. Margot's hands were limp in her lap, and the rope of poppies and the moonstone ring that she had been holding slipped to the floor. The ring rolled away, and Rosemary picked it up. She tried it on her finger, and it just fit. And now she saw that it shone a little like moonlight. Rosemary stood silently beside Margot until she looked up at last. "What is your name?" she asked. "Rosemary." "Have you ever been unhappy, Rosemary?" asked Margot. "Yes," said Rosemary. There was another long silence. "I am to be married to Prince Conrad tomorrow," said Margot. "He is a young man any girl might be proud to wed. But I love a shepherd who lives in the fields far away. It was last summer that we met, and now, for all I know, he has forgotten me." The tears rolled down her cheeks again, and Rosemary put out her hand to comfort the little Baroness, and the stone on her finger shone like moonlight. A sweet sound blew through the window. Down below, someone was singing, "Over the fields I see myself walking, one where there should be two. The sheep and the flowers and the trees will be talking, not I with you." Margot rose and stood listening, terribly still. "The sheep in the fields will lie huddled together, not I with you. Alone and alone in any weather, one where there should be two. Under the trees I see myself lying, one where there should be two. The birds overhead will be singing and crying, and I for you." "It is he," said Margot. "He has not forgotten." "In these numbers lay all my sorrow, one where there should be two. Over the fields I see tomorrow, and I without you."